Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Solve. In today's video, we are going to solve a 2015 previous year prelims question. And this question is specifically regarding winter rainfall in India. Also, the first statement regarding the question is also related with westerlies, and both of them they are related to each other. The winter rainfalls in India as well as the westerlies, they are related to each other. And in this video, we will see that how this process is taking place. And in this video, we will be discussing regarding specifically three concepts: westerlies, jet streams, as well as another event called as western disturbance. You must have noticed, say 1 or 2 weeks before, it was raining in our northwestern regions, and we were having say snowfall, and we were having say thunderstorms, right? All these events, like the winter season, right? These events, right? Rainfall, thunderstorm, and snowfall, they are related with the weather event called as western disturbance, as well as some other places, right? In some other news articles, you must have noticed that we are having some cold waves, right? Cold wave, or can say the northern India is facing some cold conditions, right? And partially the reason for that phenomena is also this western disturbance. And in this video, we'll interlink all these concepts like westerlies, winter rainfall, as well as western disturbance. So first of all, let's take a look at westerlies, and a detailed video regarding a discussion regarding westerlies is already in our channel. You can search for that. And in this video, you have to understand that the westerlies, they are prevailing winds. They are prevailing winds means in the sense they are formed because of because of the formation of different pressure belt. The different pressure belts include the equatorial low pressure belt in the 10 degree to 10 degree north and south latitudes. Then on top of that, we are having subtropical high pressure belt latitudes, and further top of that we are having subpolar low pressure belt latitude, right? And further on top we are having polar high. So like equatorial low, subtropical high, subpolar low, and further on top we are having polar high. Wind always moves from a high pressure belt towards the low pressure belt. So westerlies, they are moving from the subtropical high pressure belt on the subtropical latitudes, from there towards the subpolar low pressure belt on 60 to 65 latitudes, right? And as the name suggests, they will be moving from say west to east generally, right? Deflected, but still you can say they are moving from generally west to east, and that's why we are calling them as westerlies. So the latitudes where they are found is actually from say subtropical, the top limit of the subtropical high pressure belt, like that is 35 degree latitude, right? The subtropical high pressure belt is extending from say 25 degree latitude to 35 degree latitude, and from the top of this subtropical high pressure belt we will be having wind formation. As I said earlier, wind always moves from high to low, and they will be extending all the way up to the lower limit of subpolar low pressure belt. Subpolar low pressure belt is actually at 60 to 65. The lower limit is 60. So the westerlies, they are blowing from 35 to 60 on both hemispheres, right? Westerlies are there on both hemispheres. The second thing you have to keep in mind, they are moving from subtropical high pressure belt to the subpolar low pressure belt. Now let's move on to the next concept, which is western disturbance. Now if you need to understand the western disturbance, right, the basic things regarding the western disturbance, its direction, right? As you can see here given by this arrow, the western disturbance, they are moving from west to the east, and they are affecting India's northwestern regions, right? And there are two concepts interrelated with the western disturbance. First, we have already covered, which was like the westerlies. The westerlies, they are moving from west to east direction. At the same time, the second concept, which is related with the western disturbance, is the case of jet streams. Now, jet streams, like in short, they are upper layer, upper level winds. Normally, when we are talking about say trade wind, westerlies, or any other wind, right, they are usually moving through the surface. Say near to say 1 or 2 kilometers near to the surface they are blowing. At the same time, the jet streams, they are blowing at very high altitude, in the sense say at kilometers, or say 9 to 12 kilometers they are blowing. So they are very fast moving winds which are blowing from say generally west to east direction, and they are taking place in the upper troposphere, not on the lower troposphere. And general classification includes mainly two types of jet streams. The first one, subtropical jet stream, which is actually above or on top of the subtropical high pressure belt which we discussed earlier, right? So subtropical high pressure belt is from 25 to 35 degree latitude, and on top of that in the sense on upper troposphere, we are having subtropical jet stream. And the next category of jet stream is a polar jet stream, and that's found on top of subpolar low pressure belt. Subpolar low pressure belt is extending from say 60 degree to 65 degree latitudes, and on top of that we will be having polar jet stream. Again, this is a general category of jet streams, but India is under the influence of predominantly the subtropical jet stream, right, which will be moving from the west to east, as well as they are found over the upper troposphere. Now think about, right, the direction or the region where the westerlies are found. They are found from actually say from 25 to on topward, from 35 to top we will be having the westerlies which are moving from generally west to east. Same latitude we are having the subtropical jet stream which is moving from west to east again, right. So think about this. In the northwestern regions of India, right, we are having these two events, like in the sense the westerlies moving through the surface, so say 1 or 2 kilometers moving through the surface from west to east. At the same time, on top of that, we are having jet streams, more specifically the subtropical jet stream moving from say west to east. So when this wind or when this disturbance or when this event, right, when they are moving from west to east, they will be carrying the low pressure regions from the Mediterranean Caspian seas towards the northwestern regions. In this picture you can find here, like somewhere here we will be having Mediterranean Caspian seas, and there is specifically another weather event which is taking place in those mid latitude regions, a cyclone formation which is called as extratropical cyclone, or there are various other names which includes temperate cyclone, frontal cyclone, or wave cyclone, mid latitude cyclone, things like that. Anyway, just understand that they are low pressure systems which are formed in the mid latitude, right. So under the influence of like the westerlies as well as the western jet stream, these extratropical cyclones, which are actually the low pressure systems, right. So after the formation of the extratropical cyclone, when they are dissipating, that low pressure can remain there. Suppose tropical cyclones or extratropical cyclones means they are low pressure systems, or surrounding that we will be having spinning winds. Once they dissipate, right, we are not having a strong or very intensified low pressure, but a miniature version of that low pressure is existing after they are dissipating. So after the dissipation stage of an extratropical cyclone, a low pressure will be there. Low pressure means region without abundance of air, right. That region will be having less amount of air particles. Now that low pressure will be pushed towards our northwestern regions under the influence of the westerly winds as well as western jet stream, and this event which brings low pressure regions towards the northwestern regions under the influence of both of these winds, right, westerlies and jet streams, and that we call it as western disturbance. Here disturbance, the word includes or word means it's a low pressure region, right, it's a disturbance, and western means the direction they are moving from west to east direction. Now, so the western disturbance, they move from west to east direction, and they are under the influence of westerlies and jet streams, more specifically the subtropical jet streams. Now another let's talk about their influence, and before going to the influence, few things you have to remember regarding the western disturbance. Usually if you have been following articles, like in these months of say January or February, you must have noticed this term comes in news. Like you must have noticed there is snowfall taking place in Himalayas, western Himalayas, and certain tunnels are being closed because of the snowfall, and you will be finding rainfall or thunderstorm activity in our northwestern regions. And in all such articles, you will come across this word western disturbance. So this means this is a weather event which is taking place in the winter season. But that doesn't mean that western disturbance is only during the winter season, right? Other than that, the western disturbance, they acquire more strength during the winter season, but they are also present during the summer season. But during the summer season, they will be more towards the upper or northern latitudes, right? So the influence of western disturbance on India will be very less, very minimal. But if there is a statement like western disturbance is only during winter season, that's wrong, right? But there is another statement like say western disturbance is mainly affecting India during winter season, which is actually correct. Or you can otherwise say western disturbance's effect is minimal during this monsoon months or summer monsoon months, which is actually correct, right? So anyway, during summer season, they will be towards more northern latitudes, India's the influence will be less, right? And during winter month, all these winds, westerlies as well as jet streams, they will be moving towards south. So India's northwestern regions will come under more, come under the more influence of western disturbance, right? So that's why, like during winter season, we find this concept mostly in news during the winter season. So now let's take a look at the effects of western disturbance. First thing I already told you, the rainfall. In the winter season, in India's case, the northwestern regions, we are getting rainfall, which is very important for the rabi cultivation, like the crops like say wheat and etc., which are cultivated in the northwestern regions. They need this winter rainfall. Temperature should be low and an adequate amount of rainfall should be there. Like it shouldn't be like a monsoonal rainfall, but less amount of rainfall, right? So the western disturbance provides this winter rainfall in our northwestern regions. So you should understand that during winter, the sun will be moving south, ITCZ will be moving south, right? I suppose you must be knowing what is ITCZ. And all the pressure belts will be moving south. So does the winds will be coming towards south. I'm not saying southern India, right? Towards south from their latitudes. So like India will be coming under the influence of western disturbance more on like the winter season. Why? Because of the southward shift of the pressure belt, wind belt under the influence of southward shift of like apparent position of sun during the winter season, right? So all of them like they are related, right? The movement of sun as well as the shift of pressure belt and shift of wind belt, all of them they are related to each other. Anyway, let's come back to the effect. The first one is the winter rainfall and the second effect includes say snowfall. In Himalayan regions, right, in the western Himalayas, we are having like say snowfall, which is important for the glaciers there. The glaciers there are growing in size because of the rainfall, not rainfall actually, the snowfall, right, the form of precipitation itself. The snowfall will be taking place in the Himalayas, the western Himalayas, under the influence of western disturbance. So that's why like the glaciers will be growing in size and these glaciers are also important to sustain the river flow, like which is important for agriculture in our northwestern regions as well as the plains. Now the second one, thunderstorms. In some other video we will be discussing in detail regarding the thunderstorms, and you should keep in mind like the thunderstorms, for their formation moisture is necessary. For formation of thunderstorm, the moisture is necessary. So the western disturbance during the pre-monsoon season in the sense of February, March, those season, the western disturbance will be providing this moisture which is necessary for the formation of thunderstorms. And for that reason, in the western, in the winter season, we will be having thunderstorms forming in our northwestern regions. Again, you must have seen these thunderstorms in news articles. You must have read about it, right? The northwestern region and the northern regions are having, say, snowfall, winter rainfall, the extreme low pressure extreme cold conditions, as well as, say, the events of thunderstorm. They all are related with this event, which is called as western disturbance. The next one, anticyclone. So, cyclone and anticyclone, these are two weather events. Cyclone means at the center we are having a low pressure and the winds are spinning around it, right? And there are different cyclones like tropical cyclone which are forming in the tropical latitude and extratropical cyclones which are forming in the extratropical latitudes, right? On opposite this, we are having anticyclones. Anticyclones means at the center we will be having a high pressure system. During a cyclone at the center we are having low pressure. If at the center we are having a high pressure, we call it as anticyclone. Now think about this. Let's see how anticyclones are related with the western disturbance. Now think about this. During the winter season, the land would be cold, right? It's winter, right? The land would be cold. And on top of that, we are getting rainfall. So that means, imagine this, if you are already having a cold condition, and for on top of that, we are again getting rainfall. We'll be having more cold conditions, right? The temperature will be dipping low or it will be further lower, right? Due to this reason, right, the air will become more and more dense here. And this is actually an after effect of western disturbance. Due to the rainfall provided by western disturbance, we will be having low pressure systems. Western disturbance is a low pressure system, but after effect of that means that it will be bringing more rainfall, right? And once this rainfall is received, these regions, right, the northwestern regions will be having, say, more denser air conditions, which can lead to anticyclonic conditions. And this, don't confuse with this, in this picture it's given as a low pressure here, right? That's actually part of the western disturbance. But as an after effect of western disturbance, after the winter rainfall is received, the land would become, say, cold, and like we'll be having more, say, air would be more dense there, and will result in high pressure conditions, which we call it as like anticyclones. Now, if you are having a high pressure system, the wind will always move away from that high pressure system. So imagine this, in our northwestern region, if you are having a high pressure system, the winds will move from that high pressure in all directions, towards all the directions, right? And you should remember that this anticyclone has formed here because, like, the conditions are very cold, the air is very cold and dense. So if the winds are blowing from that region towards another region, what will happen? Will the temperature decrease or will the temperature increase? Now think about it. The temperature will decrease, and such conditions we call it as, say, cold waves. So due to the occurrence or due to the winter rainfall provided by western disturbance, anticyclonic conditions are formed over the northwestern region, and from there the winds will be moving in different directions, and that can result in the cold wave conditions. So these are the effects that are related with the western disturbance: winter rainfall, snowfall, thunderstorms, as well as anticyclones. Now let's take a look at let's solve the previous question from this topic. So it's a two-statement question. The first one, consider the following statements. The first statement: the winds which blow from 30 degree north to 60 degree south latitude throughout the year are known as westerlies. Actually, if you closely observe, right, the latitudes are given differently. It's not 30 degree north and 60 degree south. Rather than that, 30 degree north and 60 degree north, right? So there's a minute, like, it's a trap-based statement, right? If instead of this, yes, if it was given as, say, N, right, north, the statement would have been correct, right? Anyway, this is not a typing mistake made by us. Like, UPSC asked a question like this in 2015. Like, this shows that you have to very attentively read the statements, right? They can set traps like this. So the westerlies, they are blowing from 30 degree north to 60 degrees south. That means it's wrong, right? The first statement is wrong, and we have seen earlier the latitudes of the westerlies, right? And when I said the earlier, I told you 35 degree to 60 degree latitude, right? Even if I'm saying, say, from 30 to 60 or 65, still that's true, right? The latitudes of these wind belts, they're not very absolute. They tend to change their position according to the sun's apparent movement. So even if we are saying, say, 30 to 60 degree north latitude, it would be correct. But here in this statement, since it is given as 30 degree north to 60 degrees south, I mean, it's in the southern hemisphere, longer stretch, right? Which means the statement is wrong. Now let's move on to the second statement. The moist air masses that cause winter rains in the northwestern regions of India are part of westerlies. If you observe, like, the moist air masses that cause winter rain is associated with western disturbance, and western disturbance is associated with, like, the westerly winds as well as, like, the subtropical jet stream, right? So here, like, answer is correct. Here it is said, like, the moist air masses that cause winter rain in northwestern regions of India are part of westerlies, right? Together with westerlies, there is also influence of jet stream. That doesn't mean that this statement is wrong, right? So under the influence of westerlies, we are having winter rainfall taking place in the northwestern regions of India, right? The second statement here is true. So here the answer comes out as 2 only, which is B.